told you about this when you first told me that we were going to have Alex on, and you've probably forgotten. Alex, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Have you ever played Nuclear Option?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So then it was an imposter that I saw.
Ah.
There was an Alex the OK in one of my games one time, and I'm like, huh. And then, Quinn was like, we're going to have Alex the OK on the show. I'm like, I wonder who Alex the OK is. I looked at your channel. I've been to a bunch of videos.
Wondering is like, was it that guy that I dominated for 2 hours and bullied and shot down?
That's not how that works, Quinn.
I can tell you how you could have spotted if it was an imposter, because the channel isn't Alex the OK, it's Alexander the OK.
But that was the thing, it was Alexander the OK.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually, there's been another one in the wild. Someone else has asked me this exact same question before. I can't remember what game it was, but exactly the same.
We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Chris, he, him.
Sorry, I fucked that up. That was meant to be me, wasn't it?
We're keeping that in. We're keeping it in.
Keeping it in.
No, you see, that's the wonder of editing
in
and post.
Alex, he, him.
All right, keeping that too.
Excited Chris, him.
And today we are talking about the LKS, the other, I think, Soviet space plane design.
Every OKB had to submit a space plane design.
Basically, yes.
It was just part of the program, yeah.
I'm considering it the other because there was the Buran, the famous one. MiG had the Spiral. Then there was the Max. I guess there was also kind of Bor, B-O-R in there. And then there's LKS. But honestly, I wrote that intro before I finished the rest of the script. And there's actually like 5 more Soviet spaceplane designs that just never went anywhere. They loved doing that shit.
It's your favorite activity.
Yeah. Now, as you heard, we have got a guest. We are joined today by space and aerospace YouTuber Alexander the OK. On his channel, which you can find linked below, he has made several very fun and very well-researched videos on all kinds of space history projects, including a couple of fun Soviet spaceplane ones. Alex, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Quinn. I think you probably remember a few months ago, I didn't know who I was talking to and said, oh, there's this great podcast, Failure to Launch. It's like my favorite podcast. And you're like, yeah, I'm Quinn.
Hi.
Yeah, that's the problem with networking. So like I will fully be frank, whenever it comes to networking for the show and trying to find guests, I will show up in someone's Patreon Discord and I will just kind of like, I'll wait around a little while. I will ideally wait around until the green hi there I'm new thing goes away. And then try and like diplomatically broach the topic. But then it was just like the stars just aligned perfectly.
I didn't even know what I was doing with Discord back then. It was a new Discord. I didn't even know what the green thing meant. Like, you just mentioned parachutes. I was like, oh, hi, new guy. Yeah, Failure to Launch, great podcast.
And yeah, I am also a big fan of your work, of your videos, and I'm sure a lot of the people in our audience are, at least judging by how often they get spread around our Discord as well. Sign up for the Patreon. But yeah, this has also, like, I'm pretty sure as soon as that discussion happened, we were talking about collaborating. So this has kind of been a ways off, trying to find a good topic, trying to find a good time. And I think we have found a great one. Anyone who is familiar with how I make this show, or how I make the scripts, knows that I get really excited with a topic and wind up spoiling it to random people. Sometimes it's the Chris's, sometimes it's a fan.
No, I maintain perfect cognitive dissonance. I forget everything you tell me about episodes until we record.
Just rebounds right off.
Just slides.
This is a fun one. We are going to be talking about the LKS, which is specifically the light spaceplane design by OKB-52, headed up by one of my personal favorite chief designers, Vladimir Chelomey. I may be mispronouncing his name, but yeah.
The Space F-150. Or sorry, what was it? The Space Breadloaf van.
You called it a Bukanka, whatever?
Bukanka, the UAS van
Wow,
that
you
looks like a
couldn't even-
breadloaf.
You can only approximate it, Quinn.
Now, I will be upfront with this. There is not as much solid info on the LKS project as I would like, largely because it never happened and it basically did not leave the drawing board. But this is one of those stories, one of those magical stories, where as I researched it, it became clear that the history and the people involved was significantly more interesting than the actual engineering. We are going to be talking about the LKS, Vladimir Chelomey's smaller, cheaper, shittier alternative to the Buran space shuttle. We are going to be talking about the merits of the design and the preliminary work that went into it. We are also going to be talking about how the entire project was run unofficially, in secret, illegally, and off the books.
Hell yeah.
And we are going to talk about how it backfired so badly it killed a major player in the Soviet space industry.
What? Did he just pop a vessel?
I mean, if we're talking about, okay, so to be clear, it killed a major OKB, but it also killed two major figures, brackets, people. So
Oh, hell yeah.
What? Did it just power word kill them?
Well, in complete fairness, the Buran still has it beat there.
Okay.
I guess the ceiling, whatever. We will eventually get to the ceiling collapse. Yeah, you guys can now tell why I am so excited about this.
Did Chelomey just slide down a flight of stairs?
Oh, like the Buran ceiling collapse, except because the LKS is much smaller, it's just like the tarp falls down on top of you and smothers you. It's under like a blanket fort. Chelomey and dozens of engineers killed in the collapse. Also, for sourcing, I have a few that I will be relying on. Mostly the books The Proton Launcher by Christian Lardier and Stefan Berensky, Ahead of His Time by Ivan Evteev, and Energiya-Buran by Bart Hendrickz, as well as a couple of supporting articles by space historian and journalist Anatoly Zak, Astronautics, and Paul Dry's False Steps space history site. Of these, the most relevant is Ahead of His Time, which is an actual biography of Chelomey written by an engineer who worked with him. However, since that book was only published in Russian and I had to translate it, I will not be quoting it or relying on it for exact numbers, just because, I may have mistranslated.
Quick interjection. This thing was to be mounted to Proton?
Yes. Bolted
it
right
has
on
the
top.
mandate. It has the mandate of hell already. Okay.
Well, I mean, we're already talking about
Perfect.
Chelomey, so Korolev had his whole thing of he would not touch hypergolics unless he truly had to. OKB-52 had none of that problem whatsoever. They are all hypergolics all the time, baby.
Bathing in it.
Not just a little as a treat, as I like to say. Full
Yeah.
proton.
Yeah. every stage, LKS, you bet that's got the Devil's Venom in it. I think,
Yes.
Devil's Venom N2OH, I think.
It's nitrogen tetroxide and
Okay.
We need to work that
Not
weird
yet.
They needed to work that weird tripropellant rocket they had into the mix.
Oh, God.
do you mean Max?
What powered Max?
Yeah, I think Max, yeah. The follow-on from Spiral.
Yes, Max was. We're off topic already. Max
It's fine.
was kerosene, hydrogen, and oxygen. So it was the propellant wasn't particularly nasty, but the mechanics were absolutely nightmare.
Yeah, so it's no hypergolics, but it's still this wildly complex. Why are we mixing two fuels and an oxidizer?
Yeah.
The king of cruise missiles.
Now, to properly explain this story, I am going to need to start, as we often do, with some historical context. I'm going to give you a crash course on Joint Design Bureau number 42, aka OKB-52, and its chief designer, Vladimir Chelomey. First off, Vladimir Chelomey did not start off running OKB-52. He actually started with 51. In the early 40s, Chelomey, he was one of those early guys who got crazy into rocketry in the 1920s. He was one of those Korolev, von Braun kind of figures who was working his way up through the amateur rocket clubs. But for him, in the early 40s, he invented a design for a pulse jet engine. And while it didn't work that well, like it wouldn't have been able to fly, it did make him the person to talk to when the British shipped the Soviets a few captured Nazi V-1 cruise missiles. So the V-1 famously powered by a pulse jet engine, that's what gave it its kind of like rattling buzz sound as it flew, that's what made it the doodlebug. Chelomey was put in charge of OKB-51 and tasked with reverse engineering the missiles. He did this pretty well. He eventually made 10 different designs based off of the V-1. You can see one of the designs there with the twin engines coming off of it. And initially, this is called the 10KH, but yeah, he builds like loads of variants. Some of these actually make their way into active service with Soviet units. So these missiles actually work pretty well. Like he goes from exact copies of the V-1. It's kind of the same way that a lot of rocket development works, like Korolev, famously. Like the first Soviet ballistic missile is the R-1, and it is an exact copy of a V-2. But then the R-2 kind of builds off of it, and then the R-5 is a completely Soviet design. The same thing kind of happens with Chelomey's cruise missiles. He starts off with exact copies, then he modifies them, and eventually he's just building his own things that are better. He quickly became the Soviet Union's guy for cruise missiles. Unfortunately, that was not a very valuable guy to be in the early 50s. We are not talking rocket pill time yet. Khrushchev is not yet in charge. In 1953, Stalin signed an order that rolled OKB-51 into the MiG Fighter Design Bureau, headed up by Artem Mikoyan. A large part of the politics behind this is that Mikoyan hired Sergei Beria, the son of the infamous secret police chief Lavrentiy Beria.
Of course he pokes his head into this.
This is a thing with OKBs. You hire the leader's kid as an engineer. He works for you, and then you get favors. Artem Mikoyan picked Beria. We're going to see later, Chelomey learns this trick and he uses it. So, and this is another thing with OKBs that we are going to talk about, is that, you know, every OKB needs a patron. They need a big Soviet figure that can help you, that can cut through red tape or protect you from, in this case, another OKB's patron. So Artem Mikoyan, he kind of picks Beria, and through that he gets the ear of Stalin, and he's able to take over OKB-51. Chelomey is able to rebound from this because even this early, he has his own patron, and that is Georgy Malenkov.
I wonder who my protection patron is, and this would have been the most perfect place for you to put the subscribe to the Patreon message.
Whoa. See, I didn't clue into that right away, and I was thinking, like, who is our patron? Well, it's the Betheaverse, obviously. It's Joe Kasabian.
Who protects you, Quinn, and who protects me, and they're fighting each other.
Our valued patrons.
Our valued patrons.
We have so many.
You too can become a protector of us and become our valued patron over on Patreon.
Exactly.
I'm doing it right now. I've never signed up to your Patreon. I'm literally doing it right now on my second monitor.
Much appreciated. Oh God, we need, if we haven't already, we need to talk about how the Soviets launched a satellite with a mannequin in it, an early Vostok test satellite. And they wanted to make it clear both that they could test the radios and that there was not an actual person on board. So they went through a whole bunch of different ideas of, you know, what if we just got the radio recording to say something insane? Well, then the Americans are going to think that we've got an insane cosmonaut in orbit. And eventually they landed on, what if we just played choir music from like 200 people singing? There's no way the Americans will believe we launched the entire Red Army Orchestra.
What if we played Swan Lake from the satellite? Oh, wait.
and I think the final thing they added was someone reading off a recipe for like chicken soup. But yeah. And like coming back to Chelomey, so he has a patron in Georgy Malenkov. And this happens in 1953. This happens in early 1953. That Stalin steals OKB-51 away from Chelomey. Stalin then immediately dies and Malenkov is in charge. This happens a handful of days later. And as soon as Malenkov is in charge, like I want to pretend that this is there's some like backroom politics. No, it's just Stalin is in charge. Chelomey loses his OKB. Stalin dies, Malenkov takes over. Malenkov immediately gives Chelomey another OKB again. And this is how OKB-52 comes into being. It's kind of anticlimactic, but it's also just like, fuck it. You know, the king is dead. We have a new one now.
How dare you hurt his precious boy?
And this happens, again, the whole thing, Chelomey loses OKB-51 and he gains OKB-52 within the span of like 2 weeks.
So, you know, he upgraded. He went up a number.
Exactly, yeah. My God.
Well, no, I guess technically that's downgrading,
Yangle has
right?
OKB-586.
That's technically downgrading, right? Because everybody wants to be OKB-1, right? Because you're number one. So technically going from 51 to 52 means he got bumped down a place, which kind of sucks, you know?
Also, I know like later on we're going to get into the point where they're not technically called OKBs anymore and they start having company names. I'm just going to stick to calling them OKBs because I don't want to deal with like, oh, this is NPO Mashinostroyenia and this is NPO Energiya and this is KB Salute and fuck it, OKBs. So,
fuck you.
Has anyone ever drawn up an org chart? Has anyone ever drawn an org chart of them all?
Yesterday,
I've tried as well. Yeah.
Yesterday, I also tried making a relationship web of who hates who.
Did it just become just a solid black sheet?
Well, again, the problem is that OKB relationships are incomplete without the patrons in the mix as well, because the patrons can also hate and love different OKBs, which we will get to. Back at the drawing board, Chelomey set about designing almost all of the Soviet Union's earliest cruise missiles. This time, the military wanted as many as they could get. See, this is like 1957. Like, if we get to 1957, Premier Nikita Khrushchev has been successfully rocket-pilled by this point in time, and he is busy redesigning the entire Soviet military to be missile-focused 110%. That meant every single ship and submarine in the Soviet Navy was expected to bristle with new cruise missiles. Missiles, as it turns out, like the P-5 Pyaturka that Chelomey would provide. This one missile goes on like 3 different kinds of submarine and like 4 different kinds of missile cruiser. In like the late 50s, it becomes the main striking force of the Soviet Navy.
God, I loved her. I love early cruise missile submarines. They're just so janky.
I love the submarines before they figured out how to launch them underwater, where you had like a weird hanger in the nose of that American submarine.
Oh,
back when cruise missiles were literally just jets with the cockpits taken out.
Was that the one where the guys had to literally come out on deck to launch it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had to be launched sideways, like it had to be launched broadside because otherwise it would hit the conning tower.
Yep.
Regulus too. It's kind of the more common one you see pictures of.
Yeah.
The prototype missile actually had landing gear.
Hell yeah.
Huh?
So yeah, give me a second. I'll chuck a link.
Yeah, that's not for return. That's for attacking enemy airfields. It just comes in for a perfect landing, taxis into a hangar, and then detonates. It will perfectly follow, like it has cameras, it has visual navigation, it will perfectly follow all of the different blinking lights along the way. Watching in horror as the missile just holds a holding pattern and there's only so long I can delay it.
It's just repeatedly requesting permission to land.
Denied. So yeah, Chelomey quickly becomes the Soviet Union's king of cruise missiles. And then, perhaps learning a lesson from Mikoyan, Chelomey hired Khrushchev's son Sergei to come work for him as an engineer. This is also something where, like, every single time it comes up, I always need to clarify that Sergei Khrushchev was very likely hired as, like, a Nepo hire and, like, a political contact. But then he very quickly earns his place as an actual visionary in spacecraft GNC, like guidance, navigation, and control. He's actually a visionary, and he actually does belong up there.
Everyone that thought he was truly a Nepo baby hire just going, oh shit.
There's a great book that I quote from occasionally here called Voices of the Soviet Space Program. And it has an interview with him. And one of the things is like, yeah, I wanted to work harder because everyone thought I was a fucking nepotism hire.
Hell yeah.
I can't say for certain that it made the difference or was the main factor, but from 1957 onward, Nikita Khrushchev would remain a solid backer of Chelomey and OKB-52, even against Korolev and OKB-1. With his new access, Chelomey decided to enter the space and ballistic missile fields in 1959. He started this off with an aggressive barrage of pitches to Khrushchev and the Kremlin, drawing up plans for an entire fleet of spacecraft and spaceplanes that would cover everything from scientific exploration to flat-out dropping bombs on the US from orbit. True to his character, Khrushchev liked the idea and allowed OKB-52 to become the first real competitor to OKB-1 in the Soviet space field. So, like, They are already the cruise missile people. There is no other aside from, I guess, OKB-586 focusing on ballistic missiles at this point, in terms of actual space exploration and spacecraft, there is not a competitor to OKB-1 at this point, 3 years after Sputnik 1 has launched. And then, to kind of sweeten the deal even more, Khrushchev gave them a minor OKB, OKB-23. He gave it to him as a gift. This is the Philly factory. Nowadays, it's called Khrushchev, and it was the premier space production facility in the Soviet Union. Also, as you can probably see so far, OKBs are constantly being traded, annexed, hostilely taken over, and yes, sometimes it can just be like, your patron just orders them to fold themselves into your OKB. This is just like a constant feeding frenzy. Like, you could be the head of your own OKB, and then Khrushchev just calls you up and goes like, you're fired, you work for him now.
Pack your stuff, you're gone.
My patron can beat up your patron.
Mom said I'm in charge now.
Yeah, Mom said I get to run the Soviet space program now.
No, what does Dad have to say about it?
I'm just left thinking about OKB-1, and I'm just thinking the thought of, like, me and my firstborn, who I give all of the food and all of the amenities, and everyone else who I give, like, a pittance.
Here are some crumbs.
Kind of, yeah.
And then being like, why can't the rest of you be good like him?
But can't you catch up? So that gets us up to speed on the start of Chelomey and OKB-52 and how they got themselves involved in the Soviet space industry. This episode is, again, not going to cover, like, the whole of their history, but I do want to take a wider look at how they operated and what differentiated them from their biggest rivals. First off, like we've talked about, every OKB needs a patron. This is normally a high-up politician within the Communist Party, the Soviet military, or if you're lucky, even the Politburo itself. I'm now trying to think, like, what happens if you just, like, roll the world's worst patron and it's just, like, the like, 80-year-old fucking minister for sport? It's kind of like, like, all right, buddy. I guess.
All right, well, I guess we'll have you for a year or two.
Yeah, don't worry, we get to re-roll soon.
Just frantically trying to live until you get traded.
Yeah. Fucking assassinating my patron because I want a better one.
That would have been a good place to interject it too. Every OKB needs a patron, just like how every podcast needs a patron.
The benefit of having a patron is to just make sure that everything goes your way. They can cut through the bureaucracy, they can ensure funding, or they can kill one of your opponents if it really comes down to it.
Just straight up getting murdered for working at my OKB.
The obvious risk is that if your patron falls out of favor or out of power, you are suddenly very vulnerable because you have hitched your wagon to a Soviet politician, and they don't tend to last too long. I want to read a quote from Voices of the Soviet Space Program by space historian Slava Gerovich. Quote, "The organizational structure of the Soviet space industry, based on personal patronage more than any explicit institutional subordination, facilitated fierce institutional rivalries, in particular those involving the design bureaus led by chief designers Korolev, Chelomey, and Yangel. Personal conflicts among leading figures, such as Korolev versus Glushko or Ustinov versus Chelomey, further complicated the Byzantine world of Soviet rocket and space industry. This is why I love this so much. So much of the Soviet space industry happens or doesn't happen purely because of the egos of, like, 5 guys.
Someone got their fifis hurt, dissolve the OKB.
Yeah, fucking sending someone to, like, dipping my enemies into a vat of devil's venom. Purely because Minister of Defense Dmitry Ustinov does not like them.
That's it, put them in the goo.
Yeah, so you can see a couple of OKBs there, and like who they were allied with and who they were enemies with. Yangel, I couldn't really find enemies for, because Yangel's kind of whole thing was just like, fuck it, we will only make ballistic missiles. You can put a satellite on it if you're insane, but we're gonna make missiles. OKB-586 is crucially why Ukraine still has a pretty mature missile industry, because they were in, I think they're in Kharkiv, but they're Yuzhnoye is the name of them. Probably mispronouncing that as well. And nowadays, OKB-1 is NPO Energiya, and OKB-52 is NPO Mashinostroyenia. Although I think they've all kind of been, like, subordinated and traded around and whatnot.
Passed
OKB
around.
stuff. And you can see below that a couple of the patrons. So the main ones would be Minister of Defense Dmitry Ustinov, General Secretary Nikita Khrushchev, and then his replacement, General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev.
Oh, spectacular picture.
Of course, I deliberately picked those out for exactly that reason. I couldn't find a funny one of Ustinov, though. Dude wasn't very funny.
God, why does it look like it's 9 a.m. and his eyes are already floating from the amount of alcohol in his system?
And just like, yeah, that like whenever Leonid Brezhnev orders your entire space agency liquidated, that is the phone call. Like, that's the fit that he is rocking as he orders your career destroyed.
Thanks, I hate it. I'd rather have fucking happy corn Khrushchev.
I've just clocked on that's corn that Khrushchev's holding. Yeah.
So in the early 60s, despite having initially pilled Khrushchev on the idea of rockets, Sergei Korolev was having a bit of a falling out with the general secretary. And he had put a lot more stake, like basically by the early 60s, Korolev has latched onto Leonid Brezhnev, and that is the OKB-1's new patron, which kind of frees Khrushchev up to become OKB-52's patron. So in 1959, whenever Chelomey shows up with his whole pitch of like, OKB-52 is going to enter the space field, he does it. He shows up with an array of different spacecraft. He's going to have like variants of all of them. He shows up with an entire ecosystem of launchers, satellites, military, scientific, everything. He has come prepared, and he woos Khrushchev instantly.
Oh, hell yeah.
Unfortunately, that also gained him a lifelong enemy, Dmitry Ustinov, patron of Yangel's OKB-586, and basically the man in charge of the entire Soviet military-industrial complex. His titles kind of change over the years, but the thing that he is never not in charge of is every single weapons factory, which is maybe not a good enemy to have when you want to make weapons. So everyone has kind of picked teams. Everyone has kind of picked a favorite guy. And Chelomey has picked Khrushchev in the early 60s, which if you know what happens to Khrushchev in the early 60s, may not be a great idea.
Not a pro-gamer move.
Meanwhile, Brezhnev remains general secretary for something like 20 years.
He's just chilling.
Yeah, so OKB-1 kind of made the right decision there. There were also cultural differences between OKB-1 and 52. Where Sergei Korolev preferred to be a manager, wielding the carrot and stick in equal measure, Chelomey liked to get involved with the details of his engineers. In an interview with space historian Slava Gerevich, OKB-52 engineer Sergei Khrushchev described it like this, quote, "The culture of engineering was high. It differed significantly from Korolev's firm. Korolev just demanded you get things done, while Chelomey was closely involved in everyday activity. He didn't just say, just do it, and if you fail, I'll come after you. Brackets, that's the Korolev approach. He himself checked our calculations of stability and precision. He understood those things much better than his engineers. This forced us to work better. We had to be prepared to answer his pointed questions." So I am immediately seeing pros and cons to both of these methods, where like Korolev, he trusts you because you're an expert and he's not in your field. But the downside is that if you fuck up, he will come and start like screaming at you and threatening violence. Meanwhile, Chelomey just hovers over your shoulder and just asks you what you're doing. Neither sounds like a great boss, now that I'm...
Yeah, I was about to say, neither of those sounds like a boss that I'd like. Because it sounds like my last boss, who was both of those.
Hell yeah. Someone who would get really mad and attempt to micromanage you?
Yes, he was huge micromanager, and every time things didn't like go right, he was not like leader quality about it. It was like shouting and mad, like
he could not handle
behavior. It sucked.
I love that dichotomy of like, I am going to micromanage you so that you have no say in how anything goes. Everything will be my responsibility. Then the instant anything goes wrong, it's their fault, not my fault.
How dare you do this to me?
How dare you not follow my instructions correctly?
Yeah, he had hired, it took him like an eternity to kind of like restructure like our team, because it was kind of just all like, here's all your technicians, and they're kind of just doing whatever, right? Like there really wasn't much of an order to it. So he hired new people, which included like a manager who came from like a call center. So like he had lots of experience doing people stuff. Yeah, because that's basically what my old job was basically a tech call center that wasn't entirely like a call center until later, and then I left. So
gotcha.
But anyway, like he hired this manager, and like I don't know, yeah, like something happened and like he got like upset with us. Like my boss got upset with us in like an email, and just like as part of that email chain of him like getting pissed off at all of us was like that manager like was like, hey, like don't do that or I'm gonna quit. And then my boss was like, I don't give a shit, and then the manager quit, and that fucking sucked.
Nice.
So it's just like, yeah, like having your new guy who's like helping you restructure your entire company. Where like,
hey,
because
stop
you can't,
harassing my team or I'll leave.
Yeah,
I'll
like
harass your team anytime I want.
Don't belittle your employees and treat them like shit like this. And it's just
Don't
like, I'm gonna quit.
Employees. That's what you sound like right now. That's what you sound like. Idiot, stupid face.
I feel very lucky. I don't think I've ever had a boss that cares enough for any of this, to be honest. Like,
I mean, now I work in a company that's like so huge that I basically don't exist to anyone outside of my immediate team. So,
you exist
that's better.
To us,
that's
friend.
definitely a step up.
I kind of feel that way too. I'm just wondering if any of them are going to hear this.
Ooh, awkward. Well,
no,
I
it's
mean,
fine.
Last names are off of it, so.
Oh no, it's fine. They'll know it's me.
Yeah,
everyone seems to know I'm a YouTuber all of a sudden, which I hate. So yeah, it's all good.
Anyway, all of this is OKB-52 and its boss. When it came to official projects like the Soviet manned lunar program, 52 often lost against the much better supplied and staffed OKB-1. Even worse, OKB-1 had a habit of stealing what few projects 52 had. For example, 52 was actually supposed to design and launch a manned lunar flyby using their Proton booster. I think they called it the LK-1. Instead, Korolev stole the contract from them, designed the zoned probe using his own Soyuz spacecraft, and simply impounded some protons from OKB-52. Because OKB-1 is big and powerful, they can just say like, hey, build us rockets now. So like, not only in this scenario, not only is OKB-1 like the default winner, they've got the best scientists and whatnot, but they are also the schoolyard bully because they don't want OKB-52 to have anything. This was later repeated when, after the Soviet manned lunar program fell apart, OKB-1 needed something new to do, and they saw that OKB-52 was working on their Almaz space station system, and they just said like, I want that. That's ours now. It's called Salyut now, and they effectively took over the whole program, including, to Chelomey's great annoyance, the fact that even actual Almaz stations that were designed and operated by OKB-52 had to be called Salyut stations as part of their cover story.
Have you seen the photo of like Almaz 3 with it just? Sorry, yeah, it's Almaz 3 with just Salyut painted on the side in massive red letters. Yeah.
Another really fun one that we talked about in a previous episode is that whenever OKB-52 was designing, I think they were involved in the Polyus satellite system, which is basically like a giant orbital laser cannon as part of the whole Star Wars kind of back and forth tit for tat thing. Whenever it launched, it had Mir 2 written across it in huge letters because that was A, its cover story, and B, that was kind of like, oh, you want to use our Energiya? You want to use our Energiya booster? Fuck you, we're going to put our branding on it.
I love thinking about like how like super secretive the Soviets were about everything they did, and like I feel like more than half the time everybody knew what they were doing anyway.
Just because they're all so petty about it.
But where OKB-52 really did shine was their conceptual work. Chelomey and his staff were almost permanently churning out radical proposals and test designs, though they rarely left the drawing board. And remember that this OKB started off as cruise missile designers, even though they had now gotten into the space field. Their staff knew how to handle rockets and atmospheres in equal measure, and those ideas, those like early cruise missile history, had permeated the Bureau's cultural DNA. All of this to say that practically everybody senior at OKB-52 was obsessed with the idea of building a space plane, and this is as early as 1959.
Raketoplan.
So, back in 1959, when Chelomey pitched Khrushchev on first getting OKB-52 into the space game, he shotgunned out dozens of different proposals for launch vehicles, ballistic missiles, orbital weapons, and spacecraft, reasoning that even if half of them got approved, he would still have a solid foothold in OKB-1's territory. One of these proposals was for the Raketoplan, a small spaceplane meant to operate in low Earth orbit, be able to attack American satellites, and then land safely on a runway. There is also some confusion because another thing that he, this translates to rocket plane, but he also pitched something called Cosmoplan, which better translates to space plane. But this wasn't actually a space plane. It was a deep space exploration vessel with nuclear engines. You'll see different names floating around. Raketoplan is the one that we are talking about here. Though most of his proposed projects didn't get funding, partially because of Korolev trying to stamp out his new rival, the Soviet military really liked the idea of an anti-satellite spaceplane and gave Chelomey the green light for the Raketoplan. Even better, remember how I said that Khrushchev gave Chelomey OKB-23 the best spacecraft factory in the USSR? Well, that OKB used to belong to a chief designer named Myasishchev. And the last thing that guy worked on before the acquisition of OKB-23 was extensive testing and mock-ups of an orbital spaceplane called Project 48. So, not only did Chelomey have approval and funding for his spaceplane project, and get access to the best factory in the Soviet Union, but he also inherited an entire mature spaceplane project and a treasure trove of test data to steal from. I would kill for this. This is the most engineer holy grail of everything just being handed to you on a silver platter. All of this data, all of these mock-ups. Myasishchev did, they had so many wind tunnel tests of every possible permutation of spaceplane, and then Khrushchev just hands it to another guy.
They did all the work, and now you're given his work and the money.
I think, Myasishchev would have surely wanted to keep doing this. Also, he was like a bomber designer. I don't think it's him involved with it, but the OKB Myasishchev eventually designs one of the carrier aircraft for the Buran, the one that isn't the AN-225. But yeah.
The Atlant. Yes. I knew I'd heard the name before. Yeah. I knew I'd heard the name.
A significantly uglier aircraft.
Yes. He did the high altitude thing as well. The
U2
U2 I knew I recognized the name.
You don't like a chronoplans?
He didn't make a chronoplan. No. Beriev was the chronoplan guy. Oh. I think.
I thought
it's okay,
I heard
Chris.
a chronoplan.
Nobody's attacking our whimsical water hovercraft that will never be, it'll never have a mission, you can
have as much surface effect as you want.
Enjoy your surface effect craft as much as you want. It's never going to be economically viable to create one.
Shut up.
me just playing with a little plastic boat, except I'm holding it an inch over the water and just kind of moving it around like, yay. Now, the initial plan, as is often the case with space projects, was hopelessly optimistic. Chelomey promised in October 1960 that he could have an unmanned version of the spaceplane operational in 1961. So 12 months. This, in industry terms, is lunacy. Over the next 2 years, the project quickly shed planned variants. As the delays mounted up and people quickly realized how unrealistic this all was, they just slowly started cutting away capability, which is generally not a good sign in a project. It's not scope bloat, though, so at least there's that. So it lost the lunar flyby version, it lost the unmanned satellite version, and by 1964, it was entirely a military project. But there was one good thing to come out of this, which is that the Raketoplan actually did leave the drawing board. In December 1961, OKB-52 launched the MP-1 demonstrator, although they had to do it on a Yangel missile. This was basically a big metal dart with some guidance fins and something that I can only describe as a large flared base to increase the drag. And this actually worked. The dart flew to around 400 kilometers altitude, it survived re-entry, and it safely parachuted to the ground, all while the graphite fins, the guidance fins on the side, actually kept it, they controlled it. They guided it aerodynamically through re-entry. This is important because this test with the MP-1 is the first time in history that an aerodynamically controlled vehicle had re-entered the atmosphere. If you're looking, this is 1961, so there's not a whole lot of re-entry going on at all, but consider Mercury, consider Vostok. Those ones are not exactly in control on re-entry, at least not as much as you would like. Unfortunately, a second test in 1963 with a further developed probe called the M12 ended in failure when the demonstrator exploded on re-entry. You can't win them all.
What, just hit interface and immediately popped?
Something happened. We don't really know.
Missile fall down, go boom.
Now, the Raketoplan project was shuttered in 1965. Quoting Energiya-Buran, there appear to have been several reasons for this. First, Chelomey lost much of his political support when Khrushchev was overthrown and replaced by Brezhnev in October 1964. Second, the Design Bureau was heavily involved in other manned space projects, such as the LK-1 circumlunar program and the Almaz military space station. Finally, many of the military objectives planned for the Raketoplan were already being or about to be performed by unmanned satellites, such as OKB-1's Zenit and OKB-2's own US and IS satellites. So another thing that kind of, like, between the missiles that Chelomey makes, the P-5 cruise missile, and US-A satellites that he makes for, like, he causes the Cosmos 954 disaster. It is an OKB-52 satellite designed by Chelomey personally that sprays radiation over Arctic Canada. As well as just the fact that, like, OKB-52, they will sell you the missiles and they will sell you the satellites for tracking those missiles. Like, they have kind of, on the cruise missile side, they have kind of a full product all set up and ready to go.
I hate that you're being smart and educational, and the moment you mentioned Zenit, I've been stuck here doing a circle around it.
Yep.
Come on, just say it, get it over with.
I'm gonna say it and get it over with. No, that's not it. I have to say the whole thing, Quinn.
Okay.
In the spaceport, straight up launching it, and by it, let's just say my Zenits.
Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Now, to add insult to injury, Dmitry Ustinov also ordered that all Raketoplan project work, test articles, and flight data be handed over to Chelomey's old enemy Artem Mikoyan, because MiG is working on a separate spaceplane project called Spiral.
Oh, I mean, it's kind of cute looking.
Yeah. But
which is presumably because it never left this drawing phase. But
So Spiral's kind of different, where, like, in the iteration of the Spiral project, they built a couple of gliders that they would, like, drop from underneath a bomber. No Spiral test article ever flew on a rocket. However, eventually it becomes BOR, B-O-R, and I think, like, one or two of them get sent on suborbital flights. But that's firmly in the 80s. In the 60s, Chelomey is the only person, like, between 1960 and 1979, Chelomey is the only person, OKB-52 is the only bureau that gets actual spaceplane test articles flying into space. Everybody else is stuck on the drawing board. I think, like, the first comparable flight, arguably Buran, in late 1980s.
I think the Boar 4 flew just before Buran. By the way, that was adorable too. If you see the photos of it, it was about the size of a person. It was very cute. I think one of them's in a museum in Germany, in Speyer.
I think so.
Actually.
Like, I've seen, like, there's models of what looks a lot like a Buran, but it's very, like, degraded, and it's I don't know, like 1/3 scale.
Yeah,
I think that's like I think that's Boar 5 or 6.
Yes, I think that's 5, because that's the one that looked like a Buran, and then the one before is the one that looked like Dream Chaser or what we have on
something
screen
that was
here.
still kind of true to the Spiral design.
Yes,
I guess in that case, another thing that often happens with OKBs is hey, Boar program, you are now a Buran test data acquisition program. No, you cannot work on your own project. Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Failure to Launch, more bad space history, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option, the FTL Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes and Q&As, and joining an elevated tier gets you even more content, like Chris-narrated minisodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/failure to launch. And now, back to the episode.
The light spaceplane.
The rest of the 1960s and early 70s went smooth enough for OKB-52. They mostly focused on their Almaz space station program, which would be supplied with new TKS spacecraft. The TKS is definitely something that we're going to talk about as well, like a semi-permanent ongoing project for Chelomey that it never flew with people in it. It never replaced Soyuz, but it became the building block for most Soviet and Russian, like, it's the building block for the first piece of the ISS ever launched, Zarya. It is the building block for a whole bunch of Mir and ISS modules. The design legacy lives on, is what I'm trying to say. After a rocky start and rushed production, the UR-500 Proton booster eventually established itself as the backbone of Soviet space lift capacity. Like the Soyuz, its variants are still in use today. Asterisk. I think its last flight was in 2023, although it hasn't technically been retired yet, and some launches are still technically scheduled, quote-unquote. Now, Alex, this may sound a little familiar to you. In late 1973, the Military Industrial Commission called together various space OKBs and ordered them to formulate proposals for a Soviet spaceplane.
Oh, here we go.
Each was given a different set of requirements to design for. OKB-1 was tasked with designing a large spaceplane comparable to the US Shuttle that had been announced a year prior in 1972, while OKB-52 was told to design something much smaller, something that could handle payloads of 3 to 4 tons. I wish I could say that this was like the start of a rip-roaring spaceplane competition even if they didn't succeed, OKB-52 really put up a competition with OKB-1's Buran shuttle. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. Chelomey did not give a shit. Quote, however, the spaceplane project seems to have been low on Chelomey's list of priorities at this stage. Indications are that the bulk of spaceplane research at TSKBM, brackets that's the official name of OKB-52 at this point, was done in the late 70s, by which time Buran had already been approved. And that is also a little ominous look at what's about to happen. Like, why the fuck would he keep working on it after he already lost the contract? This is where stuff gets stupid.
Oh, we start getting a little weird with it?
I'm going to say here, colour me surprised. Like, I've had quite a lot of emails and comments asking me to do LKS, and there's no information about it. There's nothing there.
It's and like the actual talking about the spacecraft itself is kind of limited, including admittedly what I have in my script. There's not a whole lot there because it doesn't, it didn't really make it all that far into development. But the one thing I love is that Chelomey really doesn't care about the spaceplane. He acts like a spoiled child. He doesn't care once he's competing. But as soon as OKB-1 gets the competition, once they win, he's suddenly just like, I want that. Fuck you. No, it's mine. I want to play with the spaceplane. It's only once he sees Valentin Glushko having fun that he's just like, suddenly has very strong opinions about this.
The smallest hint of a smile graces his face, and it's an immediate temper tantrum.
Also, I do need to point out that by this time in 1976, OKB-1, which had then been renamed to NPO Energiya, was headed up by Valentin Glushko, the eternal enemy of Sergei Korolev, who really got the last laugh here because he replaced Vasily Mishin after 8 years. I always feel bad for kind of getting too rough early on when talking about Mishin. I don't think he wasn't as good a manager as Korolev, but all of the problems that get kind of laid at his feet, he gets blamed for like the Soyuz 1 disaster, even though that was purely a Korolev design. Anyway, Glushko, the guy who famously hated OKB-1 and Sergei Korolev, winds up in charge of OKB-1 and effectively the entire Soviet space program.
So he gets to have the last laugh.
He does, yeah. Valentin Glushko wins.
You may have fucked my sister, but you died of ass cancer.
Yeah, you died of ass cancer.
It was ass surgery. It was just ass surgery. He didn't even have cancer.
Yeah, okay, he had the worst hemorrhoid you've ever seen, and it killed him.
Hold that thought. We are about to talk about a chief designer dying during during random elective surgery.
For Christ's sake.
It's a tradition. It's how they die.
Wait, sorry. Wait. There's another one?
Hold that thought, I said.
Is there, how the CIA has a heart attack gun? Do we have
the heart attack gun? It's the hemorrhoid gun.
Yeah.
Open casket funeral because we can't
flip them over.
So, in February 1976, OKB-1 was issued the Energiya-Buran decree, which formalized acceptance of their design and instructed them to begin work on a fleet of Buran spaceplanes to match the US Shuttle. You would expect this to be the end of OKB-52's spaceplane project, especially if Chelomey hadn't been that invested in the competition in the first place. But weirdly, they did not stop. Chelomey ordered his engineers to keep working on spaceplane concepts in the background, giving the project the name Light Space Plane, or LKS. This is illegal, by the way. The contract for the spaceplane development, give us a couple of ideas, It's done. He is burning, like, he doesn't have any more funding for this. He is stealing Kremlin funding that has been assigned to, like, cruise missiles in order to fund his secret illegal space program.
You don't understand my vision.
He is fucking with the money, which is potentially the biggest mistake you can make in the space industry.
Yeah, fucking with a bag's a good way to get zeroed.
Not to mention, when you are already, like, nemesis with the head of the military-industrial complex, Dmitry Ustinov. And what likely drove Chelomey to these lengths was a personal dislike of the Buran design. He thought it was too expensive and that it would inevitably be delayed. An OKB-52 engineer quoted him as saying,
"Whereas for the Americans, the expenditures on the space shuttle are serious but bearable, for us, such expenditures will plunge us into bankruptcy. I won't be surprised if our cosmonauts will have to fly on our shuttle naked."
Hell yeah.
Oh, yes.
Tragically, Yuri Gagarin dead by this time. Otherwise, sign
he
me the fuck up, coach.
He is rolling in his grave and not being able to fly in the naked shuttle.
Suddenly partying in the insertion becomes a critical part of cosmonaut training for the Buran program. Also, we will absolutely be talking about the fake orgy that may or may not have happened on a US shuttle. Brackets, it didn't. It was faked.
Oh, no, I choose to believe that's real. No.
Yeah. The conspiracy is that they're claiming that it was fake, not that they faked it. Or better yet, what if we go with like the moon hoaxer approach of there was an orgy on a US shuttle, but it was all actors. They just found stunt doubles and made them have sex, and the astronauts are just like hiding in a ranch somewhere. Anyway, Chelomey considered the LKS to be the ideal spaceplane for the needs of the USSR and believed that copying the capabilities of the shuttle, like, he didn't think it was necessary. And I do kind of wonder about this because the Soviet space program and the American space program at the time in the 70s and 80s had very different doctrines. Like, if you look at what the Soviets are trying to do in 1970, it is launch space stations that can handle a crew of 3. They are resupplied by Progress and TKS spacecraft, and they are recrewed with Soyuzes that can carry the same amount of cosmonauts as the station can handle. So Chelomey is kind of coming at this of just like, cool, maybe the Buran's even a cool idea. Do we need it? What are we going to be doing with this thing?
Whatever you want, baby boy.
Yeah, and kind of one of the examples he gives is like, all right, the Buran can carry 10 cosmonauts. Salyut can hold 3. What the fuck are we doing?
The other 7 are just the emotional support cosmonauts on the way up.
But also the Buran can carry a Salyut. You know?
That's also fair. Yeah. Bump that up to 13, baby. The LKS, meanwhile, was designed lean. It would weigh 20 tons total and be launched into orbit on top of a standard Proton booster. Its cargo bay would carry 4 tons of payload. Manned missions were expected to top out at around 10 days with a 2-cosmonaut crew, while unmanned versions would stay in orbit for up to a year. But you can see, like, despite being cramped, there is actually a bit of living space in here. There is 2 decks. There is a sleeping space underneath the cockpit. So we're not entirely talking like Gemini 7 levels of cramped.
Okay. They can wiggle around in there a bit.
Exactly, yeah. In short, and like, it doesn't matter if they're naked, because they're going to be like pressed up against each other anyway. But yay, hooray, but tish.
Don't get too excited, Yuri.
In short, the LKS was small and cheap, unlike the Buran, and it leveraged an existing booster, unlike the Energiya. And that was kind of, there's obviously arguments back and forth. That was Chelomey's pitch of it, is this project can be done faster, cheaper, and it'll be consumer off the shelf, because I already make these rockets.
The rocket's right there. We're set.
Don't worry about how often they crash.
That's not part of the calculation. Shut up.
One of the funnier things about the history is that whenever Korolev, whenever he demanded a whole bunch of protons to be used for his manned lunar program, he grabbed the Proton before it was even done testing. So like a bunch of Zond flights. So Zond is this program to fly probes around the moon and come back, and I think they carry a bunch of turtles. A whole bunch of them crash because Chelomey has not had time to iron out the problems with the Proton, and Korolev is just like, fuck it, launch him anyway, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is very much in line with the cultures of OKB-1 and OKB-52.
Just Korolev flicking cigarette butt into the
Several
just
turtles
tank.
die in this attempt.
Wait, did they make it back, or are they still floating out there?
A couple of them made it back. Like whenever the Proton explodes, it tends to explode in the first stage. So like a lot of these failed launches will just be they never made it to orbit. Phobos Grunt, for example, never makes it to orbit. Anyway, Chelomey continued his secret spaceplane program until 1980, when for some reason he decided to go public with more than 4 years of unannounced research spending, which he mailed personally to General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev, brackets, who does not like him.
Did he send back a gun? To kill himself?
Yeah, just mailing the guy who I know hates me a big letter that says, "I did crimes, smile." I stole your money, brackets. Hire
No,
me.
we're gonna go Kabalchich.
No, it was literally I stole your money, brackets. I would like more.
Just going Kabalchich with it. I have a design for a space plane.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Unsure on what to do with the random stack of papers mailed to his office, Brezhnev convened a meeting of space designers and OKB chiefs to go over this LKS proposal. And while Chelomey had some backers in 1976, this time around the reception was decidedly chilly. They deemed his design cumbersome, difficult to realize, and expensive, which must have been very ironic because the whole point of LKS was to claim that Buran was all of those things. Crucially, not only did this commission turn him down, they ordered him to stop working on the LKS.
Stop stealing the money, you prick.
So, when Chelomey got back to OKB-52 with the news, he immediately ordered his engineers to begin work on a full-scale mock-up and have it done in a month.
Oh, hell yes.
I'm just imagining that scene of just like, you're all waiting, like you hear the door slam, you see your boss walk up and you're just like, "Did we win, boss?" And he's just like, "Break out the construction paper. Break out the paper mache. We have a job to do, god damn it."
What, sending his chief engineer to go get one of those cardboard trifolds to make a little presentation?
Just like an entire convoy of Mack trucks, UAZ trucks, all heading off to like Soviet home hardware and coming back with 2x4s.
Soviet Michael's craft.
Why is the LKS so sparkly? We couldn't get normal glue. So the team succeeded. They built the mock-up and they built it within a month, and it's a really good mock-up. But news of the work leaked to the Kremlin, who criticized Chelomey for wasting 140,000 rubles on the model. This complaint also did nothing to stop him, and it was only he got a formal reprimand from the Communist Party. Like, full on, the highest court of the land sends him a reprimand that is just like, hey, knock it the fuck off. And this caused him to temporarily stop his work.
This man is addicted to just like, it's terminal bagfuckery.
I'm going to have a space plane too. Why does Glushko get to have fun? And the bad news kept coming. Quoting Energiya-Buran, "In the political constellation of those days, Chelomey stood no real chance of mustering the support needed to get the LKS off the ground. His star had been waning ever since his lifelong enemy and Glushko supporter, Dmitry Ustinov, had become Minister of Defense in 1976. In 1978, Ustinov had already been instrumental in canceling Chelomey's Almaz military space station program. The LKS followed suit. Seated next to Chelomey in the very cockpit of the LKS mock-up during a visit to OKB-52, Ustinov made it clear to him that the LKS had no future given the amount of effort and money already invested in Energiya-Buran. Master-level hating. Things got much worse for Chelomey in December 1981, when the Central Committee in the Council of Ministers issued a decree that banned OKB-52 from any further involvement in the Soviet ballistic missile and space program, essentially ending Chelomey's career as a missile and spacecraft designer.
Just kneecapping him.
I need to take this point by point because the level of hating from Ustinov of just like, hey, I'm going to sit you down in the cockpit of the mock-up that you built and I'm going to tell you how fucked you are.
This is like some true D1 hating here.
This is visceral. Like, OKB-52 gets entirely banned from the space industry. The main competitor to OKB-1, the main competitor to NPO Energiya, is banned.
Well, let's consider the fact that you've been told, hey, stop it.
Please stop.
You've been stealing my money for the last how long, you ass?
And another thing, this is another thing that happens in 1978. So like when, this is kind of going back in the timeline a little bit technically. The Philly factory, OKB-23, they become, like, they get stripped away from OKB-52 and they get given to OKB-1. So like the Krunichev factory, they are part of OKB-52. They get made into their own thing, and then they immediately get annexed by Valentin Glushko in the form, I think they're called KB Salyut at the time. But yeah, this is the end of the LKS program. It's the end of OKB-52 as a space OKB at all. They are relegated to cruise missiles. Fuck you.
Getting put in your lane that hard.
Chelomey's legacy.
There was no recovering from the punishment that Dmitry Ustinov and the Central Committee gave Chelomey and OKB-52. Their space industry facilities and sub-OKBs were stripped from them, their project notes were ordered dispersed to better-behaving design bureaus, and by order of the Kremlin, they were relegated to their old job designing cruise missiles. Which is a pretty inauspicious end for one of the main competitors to Sergei Korolev's OKB-1. Valentin Glushko kind of wins the entire OKB war. He comes out of this the unquestioned king of space in the Soviet Union. Don't hold a grudge. Don't fuck a guy's sister.
You touch the bag, you will be killed career-wise.
Yeah, I love that he went from being in like the gulag to being on top of the entirety of the Soviet space program. I mean, everybody loves an underdog story. I mean,
he's also the guy with all of the fuels. He's the rocket engine expert. He's the guy who can kind of gatekeep whether or not you get a rocket engine or not. That's famously why Korolev has to go to Kuznetsov to get the NK-33 series made, or the NK series made. Anyway, like, because Glushko was just like, he just put an embargo on OKB-1. What I'm getting at is maybe he poisons all of these other guys because he's got access to all these weird chemicals. Maybe he induced hemorrhoids in a guy.
I'm telling you, hemorrhoid gone.
As for the LKS itself, the project was not handed off to any other OKB. It wasn't given to MiG. It wasn't folded into Spiral or Bohr or Buran. It just died. The mock-up, the only physical evidence of the project, was mothballed until 1991 when it was destroyed in what staff call an act of sabotage.
No!
There is I believe in a museum in Russia, there is another mock-up that has been made, but I know that it's not the right one because it has wheels instead of skids for landing gear.
In a so-called act of sabotage, Ustinov with a Molotov cocktail.
This is also, mid the dissolution of the Soviet Union, everything is falling apart, and someone just walks into a warehouse with a Molotov cocktail. Of just
Chelomey walks in to check on his
And of course, I'm sure this thing goes up like a fucking torch because it's made of like paper mache and construction paper.
It's just Ustinov with a cigarette and a Molotov cocktail.
What if that's how Chelomey wants to go out? He's just sitting in the cockpit. He just flicks a cigarette.
Like a funeral.
Chris, I was going to say, the Molotov feels like it's excessive. He could have walked up to it with like a lighter.
Yeah, and just
flicking a lit cigarette at it, it burns to the ground in 20 seconds.
That's quite a good novelty coffin, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, being completely honest, I don't know how much of a role LKS played directly in the downfall of Vladimir Chelomey. It certainly caused the final round of punishments, but he was already like way outside of the inner circle. His OKB was already bleeding support. They had already had OKB-23 taken from them. Like, Chelomey kind of really misplays. He doesn't do the patron game well because he picks Nikita Khrushchev, who was couped out of power in 1964. And we are now like 15 years past that. He has been flying without a patron. He also made a personal enemy out of Dmitry Ustinov, basically the manager of the entire Soviet military-industrial complex, and from 1976 until his death, the full-on Soviet Minister of Defense. While it was work on the LKS that finally got him the banhammer, there's a case to be made that, like, they didn't really care whether it was the LKS or some other project. Like, maybe he got the banhammer because he was running a secret space program, not about what that space program was actually building. But the way it worked out, it was the LKS that was the secret space program. It was the LKS that got OKB-52 relegated to its role building cruise missiles, which it is still doing today, although now all it does is build cruise missiles for the Russian military. That's it. Chelomey was also right about some parts of Buran. It did come in significantly delayed and with a significantly higher budget than expected. Originally planned to fly in 1983, it wasn't until 1988 that a not completely fitted out Buran made a single unmanned flight, with the next scheduled for 1993. Then again, it is also not clear that LKS would have done any better, either from time or cost. Whenever Chelomey pitched it, he said like, hey, we already have the Proton boosters ready to go. We don't need to develop these new Energiyas. However, within the frame of the Soviet space program, the Proton booster is incredibly expensive. It is much more expensive compared to the Soyuz booster. To give you an idea, Chelomey wanted to build 360 LKS shuttles, and he wanted to launch 90 of them a year, and every single one of those is going to need a new Proton booster, which is very expensive, and also means that they're going to have to build a lot more of them, because other OKBs still want Protons.
What on earth were they planning on doing with 360 of them?
That's kind of the weird thing, because this is all, like, a lot of the times whenever you read about this story, it will be presented as Chelomey, he learned about the Reagan Star Wars program, and he pitched his LKS as a way of kind of, this one, we'll put a laser on it and it'll shoot down all these satellites.
Oh my God.
That's actually not true. He pitched it as a weapon before, because like the LKS project is dead in 1981. Star Wars only comes around in, I think, 82 or 83. He just pitched it as a weapon straight up. He wanted to do his own Star Wars program. He wanted to build a laser and put it in the back of this thing. As for what he's going to do with 90 of them a year, I have no idea. There is no way you're rotating crews that quickly. You like 4-day space station stays and then you get rotated out. This is another one of those things where there's just not a lot of info on it. I'm sure Chelomey had some very weird and very dumb explanation for why he needed 90 of them a year.
He wanted to just stare at them.
No.
Just have them stacked up in the yard.
I want to end up with something kind of fun and kind of weird. Vladimir Chelomey did not last much longer than LKS. Quoting space historian Asif Siddiqui in his book Challenge to Apollo, ejected from the Soviet space program, Chelomey's will and his reach for success never diminished to his last days. In early December 1984, still lively and healthy, he was at his dacha, getting ready to go somewhere in his Mercedes, brackets, perks of being a high-level apparatchik. Leaving the car running, he walked out to open the garage door, but the car, still running, moved by itself and pinned his legs against the gate. He was admitted to the hospital with a simple fracture. While in the hospital, he learned that his nemesis Ustinov had suffered a massive heart attack, was paralyzed, and could not speak. Chelomey could be forgiven for believing that his fortunes were about to improve. On the third day in the hospital, on the early morning of December 8th, he was speaking to his wife on the telephone when the conversation suddenly stopped. She desperately called the hospital staff, who rushed to his room to find him dead. Doctors suspected a sudden fatal stroke, apparently caused by the broken leg. He was 70 years old at the time of his death. Legend has it that Ustinov was brought a piece of paper with a handwritten message stating, "Chelomey just died." Ustinov read it and closed his eyes in satisfaction. The first name on the list of signatories of Chelomey's obituary was that of Ustinov. Also, Dmitry Ustinov died in the exact same hospital 12 days later.
Yeah, his
Amazing.
life's mission is
I
over.
love the Soviet space program so much.
My God.
Yeah, his life's work is done. He made sure.
Yeah, as far as the legends go, it would have been much better if Ustinov had just he reads the message, Chelomey's dead, and he's just like, I
can rest now.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone.
He reads the info, like the note or whatever, Chelomey is dead. And then he closes his eyes and then, he has the slight smile and then he flatlines.
Yeah, just drifts off.
No, he just mutters, "You can't escape me, fucker." Follows him into the afterlife.
Floating up to heaven at the same time, immediately just fighting.
Ustinov is somehow waiting up there with
sparrows. Just
Ustinov is somehow waiting up there with a cue ball and a sock just to start beating him with it.
I like the idea of every time we picture Ustinov, that like every time we see him again, he just has more medals on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's armor.
Like, yeah, he's got to go for the full Zhukov. Oh, dude, I need like a spacesuit equivalent of the full Zhukov. I don't like militarizing space. I think anyone who listens to the show is well aware of where we stand on that. But I want fucking like decorations on the outside of spacesuits. I want Velcro patches. I want medals.
You gave me just this idea of Zhukov of like, he can never have less medals than anyone. So he'll posthumously be given another medal just to make sure he's always whoever is the next highest +1.
So he's just exhumed
having to carry the casket with a forklift.
It's gonna be almost like a corpse synod, but just for more medals.
Yeah, like the casket, like the contents of the casket are 92% metals by mass.
Yeah, he's just exhumed, another medal's pinned on, and he's buried again.
They just have to keep putting them in. He's like, well, it's not the order of the Soviet Union anymore. It is the Russian Federation now. Pulls a couple more medals in. And that, everyone, is the kind of weird story of Vladimir Chelomey's light spaceplane, or LKS. How are we all feeling?
That was fun.
I'm in awe.
I just had another thought. You know those like I forget where it is, but it's like the church that's made out of like bones and stuff.
The church that's made out of his medals.
Oh, okay.
It's like yeah, like so eventually the like tomb is not sufficient, right? Like you need more space for Zhukov's medals, so you just give him like a little church thing.
A little annex to the church.
Yeah. You know what would rule though is building that church, but you're downrange of Baikonur, or I guess you could be downrange. What's the They have one in the Far East, right by Japan, another launch site. Regardless, like one of those downranges where you just have a load of like old rocket parts and you've just built a church out of it.
That'd actually be pretty cool.
No, that would rule.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
There's a whole lot of hunters who like build sleds out of old parts, like old Soyuz boosters that just fall. Listener, in case I haven't described it already, a downrange is a place downrange of a rocket launch site where expendable rockets drop their boosters. It'll be kind of like a big area because they'll get flung kind of all over the place, but it's where you expect spent boosters to crash. And there are entire cottage industries of people who just salvage the shit out of them because it turns out they're made of shit like titanium.
I want a spent booster. Where do I go to get this? That
Russia.
Sounds great. Oh, forget it.
Fully opposing the advent of reusable rockets purely because I want more souvenirs.
Yeah, why would you try and destroy this cottage industry that's supporting a region?
They're coming for my jobs.
They're coming for my medals.
I don't know. Like I love this story. Again, this is one of those stories where I started off writing it and I quickly ran into the problem. I had like a sine wave of motivation when it came to writing this script of like, oh, this is going to be cool, like a Soviet story. We haven't had one of those in a little bit. And then, oh no, there's no info here. And then immediately, like we're so back of, oh my God, everyone involved in this story is an idiot.
Yeah, we're just rolling through Dysfunction Junction.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of messaged me and said there's not really any info, but it's going to be an OKB drama. I was, I'm on an OKB drama episode. Hell yeah. I can add to my org chart now.
We're rolling on vibes for this one.
I want to, at some point, I want to just pick like a tiny OKB, like maybe even OKB-23 would be a good one to talk about and just cover its history because they get passed around to like 5 different major OKBs in the course of their lifetime. They are just permanently, they are like 10th draft pick or something, and they are just handed between every other famous person. They never get a patron of their own. They never get a chief designer. I guess Myasishchev. That was actually kind of a fun one because I'm pretty sure whenever his OKB got given to Chelomey, he got promoted out of it to like a desk job in the government, which I don't know if that's exile or if he wanted it.
Because he kind of did, I can't say his name properly, Myasishchev. He kind of returned at the very end.
I'm mispronouncing it too.
Yeah. I put an A on the end when I try and say it. He did like a grand return at the end for the Buran carrier. So he came, designed it, and then just died, didn't he? Yeah.
I think so, yeah, because like he was in the government, but he definitely came back to Myasishchev. Like, I don't know if he went back to KB Salyut or if a new agency got started kind of with his name. I think it was KB Salyut.
I swear, it sounds like all of these people have like one thing they have to complete in their life, and they will just die immediately afterwards.
Everyone is a mayfly, yeah.
Glushko did as well. He launched Buran, if I've got my dates right, and then just keeled over and died straight away.
Then he probably remembered while he was on the operating table, wow, he fucked my sister, and then just dead, lack of heartbeat.
Oh, again, just the number of Soviet space officials who die. I guess like it's not a whole lot, but it's wild that 2 of them die in surgery for completely different things. Chelomey goes in with a broken leg and it causes him to have a fatal stroke. Korolev is getting ass surgery and dies from complications.
How do you complicate an ass surgery?
Well, the way you complicate it is that you are performing surgery on Sergei Korolev, the man who has survived the gulag, eats like shit, works 20 hours a day, and is like constantly drinking and smoking. The man was not healthy. But yeah, everyone, that is the story of Chelomey, OKB-52, and the LKS Shuttle. Again, Alexander the OK, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute blast. Is there anything that you would like to plug to our fans?
Oh, honestly, the only thing I can plug is my channel. Just YouTube Alexander the OK. That's all I have to say, really. And, well, thanks very much for having me. Been fantastic.
No worries. And fans, check that link. It will be in the description. Click on it. Watch some videos. Do it.
Watch the Airs episode. It's great.
Oh,
Oh, that's really serious. That's a really serious
it's a
one.
Good one, though. It's the most.
I mean, it's good, but it's really serious. Yeah.
No, dive right in. Just mainline it from the source.
There's a very silly one coming.
That's always something, like, especially for the last 3 months, because we've been doing the middle work episode. Anytime I try and pitch our show to someone, and like whether I'm clicking on whether I send a Spotify link or like here's an example of what our show looks like, it will inevitably show the most recent middle work episode, and I immediately have to follow up like, that's not all we do. We talk about fun stuff sometimes. This is not what we're about.
Yeah, this was a fun recording. My takeaway of this was that
don't fuck with the
these
bag.
are still zany and ridiculous, and if I ever encounter another Alexander the OK in the wild, it's an imposter, and I should explode him.
Yes. in nuclear option, in Minecraft.
You want to give me a code word first? I mean, what if it's actually me?
I don't know. You'd have to tell me.
It will be Chelomey just died.
I don't really play any multiplayer games,
Just
so that's pretty easy pattern.
But yeah, everyone, thank you for being here for this recording. Listener, thank you for listening. And goodbye.
Goodbye.
Adios.
See you later.
Thank you to everyone who has signed up to support the show. And a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Our sideboard cats are Boss, Katiga Reptile, Charlie, Comrade Sleepy Bro, Daniel F, Graham E, Jesslyn T, George 2, Cuckseat Stool, Startup Investor, Joss, Kamo, Lane of the Wired, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Murray Motorsports, Mysterious Stranger, Number Negative, Oil Drum, Pat, Paul C, Rare Scrungle Spingus 3rd Edition, Skylab Bricks, Source Force, Spectre Cohen, Tortilla Baron, Vivek V, and Wingsmith. Our space dogs are a Union Thug, A. Blinken, Akiogo, Aerial Badger Release, Agent Carter, Alice N, Andrew F, Andrew K, Angie, Angry Old Man, Yada Yada, Anthony C, Arcsign, Atomic Hobbit, Otto Fox, Baron M, Bat Bay, Ben L, Binary Badger, Beanie, Boomzilla, Brian F, Brian L, C, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Carson B, Chainsaw Snuggling, Chris, Chris K, Christian K, Cole C, Captain Lag, Daddy Bongo, Daniel, Does Smiley, Dom K, Dr. Shockmaster, Ank, Aaron, Eric J, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, George B, Grant K, Griffin, former snow shoveler of Burger King. Heiko S. Howl's Moving Pictures by Rush. Ian R. JMM. James C. James H. James T. Jamie K. Jarl Breadmaker. Jerry M. Jedediah D. John C. John Boy D. Jonathan G. Jonathan W. Johntastic 20x6. Juan. Just Morse. Kate B. Kate D. Corbin the Dog. Cruzzy. Lenswipe. Lorgath. Luke O. Mar. Marigold Muskrat. Marto. Maritza. Matthew M. Mech Girl Alley. Mish. Mr. Dr. John. Newman Instrumentality Project. Narrow Ebb. Nellie W. New Name. Nicholas S. Nick S. Norman W. Northeast Driver. NSFW NSA. Outlook Cove. Panda. Patron. Petey. Please talk off the cuff about Taiwan and watch to live. Devin. Poop Butt. Randall. Ray H. RBK. Rato B. Riley. Sailor of Fortune. Scott K. Sean F. Sean H. Sensual Kazoo. Sean P. Silly Vixen. Something. Sparks. Spirit of Thunder. Swanee. The Best Sean. Thomas M. Tim P. Toasty Ken. Trash Do. Birosh T. Frisk. Will W. William O. William P. Zachary JB. Zap. Zemo. Sim. And Zombie Dwarf. Albert Count. 191. Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT Launch Pod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcast on YouTube. FTL intro and outro themes were provided by DJ Danarchy.